My brother got a brand new SUV for his graduation. My dad beamed. You're going places, son. I opened my gift. It was a bill for the utilities I owed them for living at home. My sister laughed. Pay up, loser. I said nothing. I packed my bags and moved 500 miles away that night. On day 4, they called in a total panic. Where are you? The bank is here to... Let me set the scene. It's a Sunday afternoon in late June. The house smells like my mom's pot roast. The one she makes specifically for special occasions, which in our family means any moment she wants to extract maximum emotional labor from the attendees. There are balloons. Actual, physical, helium balloons, silver and blue, tied to the mailbox outside like we're celebrating something genuinely wonderful. We are, technically. My brother Kyle has graduated college. Now, before I explain what Kyle graduated from, I want you to understand that I love my brother. I do. In the same way you love a golden retriever who has absolutely destroyed your favorite shoes. With a kind of helpless, exhausted affection that doesn't really require him to be a good person. Kyle graduated with a degree in business communications after 6 years, 2 academic probations, and 1 semester where he technically didn't enroll but still lived in the dorm because no one noticed. He is 24 years old. He has never held a job longer than 11 weeks. His primary skill is explaining why none of his problems are his fault, and he is very, very good at it. I am Dorian. I am 27. I am a licensed real estate agent. I have been paying rent in my parents' house for 3 years. Actual rent, $800 a month. Because when I moved back after my first apartment's lease ended and the market went insane, my father sat me down and explained that freeloaders create resentment and that I needed to contribute to the household. I agreed because I am a reasonable adult who understood the arrangement. I mention this because it is relevant to what happens next. So, balloons, pot roast, Kyle beaming like a man who has done something extraordinary, my parents grinning so wide their faces look like they might actually split open. My sister Renee is there, wearing a dress she definitely borrowed from someone and did not tell them about. My Aunt Carol is there with her husband Dave, who communicates primarily through sighs. My grandmother is in the corner being quietly ominous, as she always is. Dad stands up, Dad makes a speech. The speech is about Kyle, about how proud he is, about potential, about futures, about what it means to make something of yourself. I am sitting there eating a bread roll and thinking about a property listing I need to follow up on Monday morning. And then Dad says, with the energy of a man announcing a Nobel Prize, and now the gift. Kyle's eyes go wide. Mom is smiling so hard, she's vibrating slightly. A set of car keys lands on the table. Silver, with a little bow tied around them, which is the kind of detail that'll stay with you. Brand new, Dad says. Fully loaded. She's in the driveway. Kyle, 24 years old, 6 years of college, 11-week employment record, walks outside and finds a brand new SUV. Black, shiny. Probably $45,000, maybe more. I don't know the exact number because I was not consulted, but I have enough professional experience with large purchases to make an educated guess. Dad puts his arm around Kyle's shoulders and says, with absolute sincerity, with the warmth of a Hallmark movie, you're going places, son. And I, 27, licensed real estate professional, person who has been paying $800 a month to sleep in my childhood bedroom. I am smiling. I am clapping. I am genuinely happy for my brother in the exhausted, golden retriever shoes way. Then Mom says, oh, Dorian, we have something for you too. Reader, I felt hope. I want you to know that. I felt a small, stupid, inexcusable flicker of hope. She slides an envelope across the table. I open it. It is a bill, not a gift card, not a card with money, not a heartfelt note. A bill, typed, itemized, with a total at the bottom. Outstanding utilities contribution, Dorian M., 36 months at $200 per month, equals $7,200. Please remit at your earliest convenience. I read it twice, then I read it a third time because I genuinely thought I was having a stroke. My dad nodded slowly, the way he does when he thinks he's being very reasonable. We sat down and did the math. Kyle's gifts cost us something, and we realized we'd been subsidizing your utilities this whole time. You've been paying rent, but not your share of electric, gas, water. It's only fair. Fair. He used the word fair. And then my sister Renee, who at 31 still asks my mother to make dentist appointments for her, looked at me across the table with a smile like a paper cut and said, "Pay up, loser." I said nothing. I put the bill back in the envelope. I put the envelope in my pocket. I ate the rest of my bread roll. I said, "Thanks for the party, everyone. The pot roast is great, Mom." And then I went upstairs and I packed my bags. Okay, I owe you some backstory. Grab a snack. I moved back home 3 years ago when my apartment lease ended and the rental market in our city became what financial analysts call a complete disaster. And what I call the reason I considered becoming a lighthouse keeper. I was 24, newly licensed in real estate, building a client base from scratch, and the numbers just didn't math correctly for a solo apartment. My parents offered the arrangement, $800 a month, shared living space, and the implicit understanding that this was temporary and that we were all adults. I should have known. The first sign was 6 months in, when my dad asked me to help Kyle out with his rent at college. Kyle's dorm was paid by my parents, but apparently there were incidentals. I gave him $300, then $200 for a textbook, then $400 because he'd had a rough semester. I kept a loose mental tally, but never said anything because, and this is the part where I fully accept my own role in this, I am a people pleaser who was raised to believe that refusing family requests is violence. The second sign was when my mom started listing things she needed. Groceries, a thing at the pharmacy, a part for the dishwasher, in a casual, breezy way that somehow always ended with me buying them. Never asked directly, always phrased as information. The dishwasher needs a part. Just leaving it there, like a stone in the middle of a path, waiting for me to trip over it and reach for my wallet. I bought a dishwasher part. I bought a lot of things. The third sign, and this one I actively chose to ignore, was when my sister Renee went through a rough patch that lasted approximately 2 years, during which I lent her $1,400 in amounts small enough that they felt reasonable in the moment. 60 here, 120 there. 220 for her car registration. I wrote none of it down because writing it down felt uncharitable, and I was raised to not be uncharitable toward family. Current outstanding Renee debt, $1,400. Amount repaid, $0. Amount she spent on a weekend trip to the coast with her friends last August that she posted about extensively on Instagram, $340. Professionally, things were actually going well. I was building a decent client list. Real estate is a hustle. It's all relationship management, follow through, showing up at the right moment. And I'm genuinely good at it. I closed 11 deals in my second year. I was making real money, which everyone noticed. That's the thing about being the competent one in a family that has decided you're the resource. The moment you're visibly succeeding, the demands increase. Not because they're proud of you, because they've recalibrated what they think they can ask for. The utility bill, $7,200, 36 months at $200 a month, was not a surprise in retrospect. It was a logical escalation. I'd been paying rent, I'd been covering groceries, I'd been lending money. I'd been present and useful and quiet. The next move was to formalize what they'd been doing informally, extracting money from me with a paper trail. What surprised me was the envelope, the typed, itemized, printed envelope, the specificity of it, the bureaucratic coldness, handing it to me at a party, next to the balloons, right after they gave my brother a $45,000 vehicle. And Renee's face, that smile, pay up, loser. Here's the thing about moments like that. They don't feel like a breaking point when you're in them. They feel like the end of a very long, very boring sentence that someone has been constructing for years and is finally finished. You don't snap, you don't rage, you just complete the sentence in your head and realize you've heard everything the sentence has to say, and you're done. I went upstairs, I packed 2 bags, clothes, laptop, chargers, the folder with all my important documents that I keep ready because I'm a real estate agent, and I understand the value of having your paperwork organized. I texted my friend, Marcus, who has a spare room and is one of those genuinely good humans who will never ask you to pay for his utilities retroactively. I booked a one-way bus ticket to his city, which is 512 miles away, because I checked. Then I went back downstairs, kissed my mom on the cheek, told everyone goodnight, and walked out the front door with my 2 bags. No dramatic speech, no confrontation, no tearful, "I've given you everything and you treat me like this." Just, "Good night, goodbye." Door closed quietly behind me. The SUV was still in the driveway, gleaming under the porch light. I nodded at it respectfully, the way you nod at an object that has no idea what it represents, and I walked to the bus stop. Day 1. I arrive at Marcus's place at 6 a.m. He makes me coffee and asks no questions, because he is a real friend, and real friends understand that sometimes a person arrives at 6 a.m. with 2 bags and just needs coffee first. I set up in his spare room, which smells like old books and has a window that faces a parking lot, and I find it the most peaceful room I have ever been in. I text my family one message. Took some time away. Will be in touch. I then put my phone on Do Not Disturb and go to sleep for 11 hours. Day 2, I email my clients. I update my listings. I take a walk. I eat a sandwich I bought with my own money from a deli I chose myself, sitting on a bench no one needs me to be accountable to. At some point, I realize I've been sitting there for 40 minutes and no one has called me to ask me to do anything. And I feel something that takes me a moment to identify. It is quiet. I'd forgotten what quiet was. Marcus makes pasta for dinner. I offer to split the grocery cost. He waves it off. I insist. He says, "You can buy next time." We watch a terrible movie, and I laugh at it, genuinely from the stomach. For the first time in a while, my phone has 17 missed calls. I do not listen to the voicemails. Day 3. I start looking at apartments in Marcus's city. Rental market is manageable here. I know because I researched this for a living. I find 3 candidates within my budget. I feel a completely unfamiliar sensation, which I eventually diagnose as optimism. My phone has 29 missed calls now, spanning Mom, Dad, Renee, Kyle, and 1 from Aunt Carol that I didn't expect. There are also 14 text messages. I read exactly 1 from Kyle, which says, "Dude, where are you? Call Dad," and nothing else. I do not call Dad. Day 4. Day 4 is when it gets interesting. My phone rings at 9:47 a.m. on day 4. I am in the middle of a client email, so I let it go to voicemail. Then it rings again. Then again. Then I get a text from Mom that says in full caps, which she has never done before in her life, "Dorian, please pick up. This is an emergency." Now, I have learned through years of experience that my family's definition of emergency is elastic. It has included a casserole dish that shattered, a neighbor dispute about a hedge, Renee locking her keys in her car 3 blocks from home, and one time, with complete sincerity, a crossword puzzle clue my father couldn't solve. So I did not immediately panic, but I picked up Dorian, my dad's voice, strained in a way I hadn't heard before. "Where are you? We need you home." "I'm out of town," I said. "What's wrong?" Silence. Then, "The bank is here." The bank. There are people here from the bank, with paperwork. They say they're repossessing the SUV. Reader, I want you to understand that I am a professional. I handle complicated financial conversations every single day. I am, by trade, someone who knows what repossession means, what it requires, what conditions lead to it. So I asked very calmly, "Dad, what do you mean the bank is repossessing the SUV? You said it was brand new." Another silence, longer this time. "It was financed," he said. "Okay," I said. "How was it financed?" There was a loan on the house. And there it was. There was the thing, sitting in the middle of the conversation, like the world's most unsurprising surprise. My father had taken out a home equity loan to buy Kyle a $45,000 SUV. He had taken out this loan, apparently without, and here I'm being charitable, thinking through what happens when you cannot make the payments on a home equity loan. And what happens, it turns out, is that the bank sends people to your house with paperwork. Okay, I said again. I am very good at okay. It is the most useful word in the English language. We need you to come home, Dad said. We need help sorting this out. And here is where I want to be precise, because I want you to understand that what I felt in this moment was not triumph. It was not glee. It was not the hot satisfaction of someone watching a plan come together. It was something quieter and more complicated. A kind of deep, tired clarity, like when a math problem you've been working on for years finally resolves into a very simple answer. I said, Dad, I'm not able to come home right now, but I can recommend a financial advisor. I can also recommend a real estate attorney if the home equity situation needs legal clarification. I'll text you both numbers. Silence. That's Dorian, we need you here. I know, I said. I'm sorry I can't be, but I think you have everything you need to handle this. You're capable adults. I used his exact words back to him, the ones about freeloaders and contributing to the household and capability. I didn't mean it nastily, or maybe I did, a little, in the quietest possible way. What about the $7,200? Dad said suddenly. Like this was still on the table. Like the table was still a thing we were both sitting at. Consider it my contribution, I said, for the SUV fund. You're welcome. I hung up. I texted him the financial advisor's number. And then I texted him a second number, my own, with a note. If you want to talk, actually talk. I'm here, but I'm not coming home to fix this. Then I went back to my client email. I'm going to tell you what I know, which comes from a combination of direct sources, Marcus's amused summaries, and one long, genuinely surprising phone call from my Aunt Carol. Within 48 hours of my departure, the family group chat, which I had muted but not left, because leaving felt like a dramatic gesture I wasn't ready for, reached approximately 230 messages. I know this because Marcus, who I made the mistake of showing the chat to once, checked it for me like a wildlife observer watching something unfold at a safe distance. Your sister is saying this is your fault, he reported, scrolling. Your mom is crying, apparently. Your dad has gone quiet, which seems ominous. Kyle is asking who's going to drive him to his friend's place, since the SUV is gone. The SUV, I learned through Aunt Carol, was indeed repossessed. The bank had been patient, apparently, for several months before sending the actual humans with the actual paperwork. My parents had been making partial payments and hoping, which is a financial strategy that works in the movies and nowhere else. The home equity loan, additionally, was not small. I will not share the exact number because it is genuinely not my story to tell. But I will say that when Aunt Carol told me, I made a sound that was not quite a laugh and not quite a gasp, but somewhere in between, like the noise you make when you step on a Lego in the dark. Renee, my sister, debt of $1,400, smile like a paper cut. Apparently spent the first 3 days texting me variations of, thanks a lot, and you're so selfish. And one message that said, do you know what you've done to this family? Which I read at midnight and found in my muted, do not disturb state, almost meditative in its complete inversion of reality. Then, on day 7, something I didn't expect. Renee sent me a different message. It said, hey, can we talk? Not about the money, just talk. I thought about it for a day. Then I called her. It was a strange conversation. She cried a little, which I wasn't expecting. She said some things about how she'd always felt like the family was waiting for someone else to fix everything. And she'd gotten used to it too. And she was sorry for the pay up loser thing, which, she said, came out before she thought about it, and that she'd been thinking about it since. I don't know if I believe all of it, but I believe some of it. Families are complicated in ways that don't resolve neatly. And Renee has her own version of this story. And in her version, maybe she's also someone who got things wrong, and then the floor shifted and she had to look at it. We didn't fix everything on that call, but we left it at, let's stay in touch. I'll take it. Kyle, the SUV's intended beneficiary, apparently handled the repossession with remarkable composure, which is to say, he pivoted immediately to asking my parents to just get a different car. The response to that request, I do not know, but I imagine it was educational for everyone involved. My dad, according to Aunt Carol, who is turning out to be the most unexpectedly decent person in this entire saga, was very quiet for a long time and then started making phone calls. She thinks he's working something out. She wasn't sure what. She said she'd always thought he was a little too hard on me, and she was sorry she hadn't said so sooner. I told her it was okay. It mostly is. I've been in Marcus's city for 9 weeks now. I have an apartment. It's a one-bedroom, third floor, with a window that faces actual trees instead of a parking lot, which felt like an upgrade I hadn't earned but accepted gracefully. My rent is $1,200 a month. I pay it. I pay my own utilities. Nobody has sent me an itemized bill. I have a coffee maker that I bought myself. I make coffee in it every morning, just for me. The whole pot, just for me. And if I want to drink it slowly and think about nothing for 20 minutes before I start working, no one needs anything from me yet. I have found this experience to be aggressively pleasant. Professionally, the move turned out to be, and I want to be careful here because I didn't plan it this way, actually quite good. The market in Marcus's city is active in a way my old city wasn't. And I came in with 3 years of experience and enough contacts to hit the ground at a reasonable pace. I've closed 4 deals in 9 weeks, which isn't spectacular but isn't nothing. I'm building. It feels like building, which is different from maintaining. And I didn't realize until now that I'd been in maintenance mode for years. I joined a recreational volleyball league, which is something I used to do before I moved home, and somehow stopped doing. The way you stop doing things when your time belongs to everyone but you. I am not good at volleyball. I am enthusiastically mediocre at volleyball. My team finds me acceptable. We went out for tacos after last Thursday's game, and I paid for my own tacos, and no one asked me to cover theirs, and I experienced the radical normalcy of this with something close to awe. I have 2 new friends, real ones, not the kind you inherit from circumstance. One of them is a woman named Philippa who sells vintage furniture and talks too fast and makes extremely good soup. The other is a man named Jerome who is also in real estate and is aggressively competitive about it in a way I find more energizing than draining, which is different from how competition in my family felt. My mom called last week, not in emergency capitals, not about a bill. Just called. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing much. A show she was watching, a thing that happened at the farmer's market, a neighbor's dog. It was the most comfortable conversation we've had in years, which says something I don't have the emotional energy to fully unpack right now, but which I noted. Before she hung up, she said, "I think we made some mistakes." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm really okay, actually." There was a pause. Then she said, "Good." That's good, Dorian. I don't know what comes next with my family. I think some version of a relationship is possible. Not the one we had, not the version where I'm the resource and they're the infrastructure and we all pretend that's love. A different version. Smaller maybe, and more honest, with actual edges and actual expectations that go both ways. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm not closed off either. I'm just living my life, which turns out to be a reasonable place to start. I kept the envelope, the typed, itemized $7,200 utility bill. It's in my desk drawer in my new apartment. I keep it, not because I'm angry. I don't think I'm angry anymore. I keep it because it reminds me of something I needed to learn, which is people will treat you the way you let them. And the letting is often so gradual you don't notice it happening until someone hands you a bill for breathing their air, and your sister calls you a loser, and your brother drives away in his new SUV, and you're standing in a kitchen full of balloons thinking, "Oh, this is what I've been." And then you pack your bags and you get on a bus. And 512 miles later, you make coffee just for yourself. And you think, this is what I could be instead. The SUV is gone. The loan remains. My family is having the kinds of conversations they should have had 3 years ago and probably 5 years ago. And probably before that. I'm not in those conversations, which is a strange relief, like taking off a backpack you'd forgotten you were wearing. Somewhere out there, Kyle is figuring out public transportation. I genuinely hope it teaches him things.